with that, the first part is typically at the start of the community day. We have these introductions with some new companies, some new members who are involved in the SPIFFE Inspire projects. And we give them a couple of minutes each to introduce themselves, introduce what organization they work for, if it's a big organization, what part of the organization is, and what are they trying to get out of SPIFFE Inspire, right? And then we'll move on to more advanced sessions posted on the agenda. First of all, I have Eric Lee from GitHub. Eric, you want to unmute yourself? I think I did see Eric a few minutes ago. Yeah, we can hear you. Go for it.
Great. Hi, I'm Eric, and I work at GitHub in the infrastructure organization. My team has been working on using SPIFFE Inspire to provide a single standardized principal for services internal to GitHub to leverage for the purposes of authentication and authorization. Probably sounds somewhat familiar to everybody who's joining the community day. And kind of the first point I wanted to make about GitHub's usage is that we're trying to make a single trusted, well-understood principle for workloads. GitHub has a variety of execution environments. They run their own facilities. They run on multiple clouds, some of which may or may not start with the letter A. And there are more and more product offerings and traffic and teams to support. So now more than ever, there's a need for frictionless, secure communication between workloads internally. And on top of that, actually, another challenge that we have is acquisitions bring their own infrastructure setups. It's not a reasonable proposition to ask an acquisitions infrastructure team to move whatever workloads they have into a bespoke system for auth and auth and identity. We're very interested in SPIFFE Inspire because it is a extensible solution. For example, we're Vault users, and we use Spire for trust and leverage Vault for what it's very good at, secrets. The kind of second point I wanted to make about the extensibility piece is the plugin framework has kind of allowed us to use our own internal APIs for various types of attestation. So rather than waiting for things to be made upstream or the right kind of abstractions to be made in the core, we simply implement well-defined typed interfaces, and we're allowed to bring our own APIs and our own approaches and ideate independent of the core. And in terms of our contributions to the community, which we are trying to grow, we've made pull requests to upstream Spire recently. We've been testing a Vault upstream CA plugin that I think is actually being added to core. And we will be announcing later this year an Envoy external authorization plugin to bridge the workload API and Envoy. Look forward to hearing all the other speakers today.
Mary, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. Yeah, that's you, Dave.
Hey, Dave Husak here from Hewlett Packard Enterprise, HPE. As Sunil mentioned earlier, we recently, just the beginning of this year, did acquire Sightail, brought them into my team. Me personally, I'm an HPE fellow, and I'm responsible for within HPE Labs what I call the Cloudless Initiative, which to echo Eric's, it's a slightly trolly name, but to Eric's comments a second ago, the mission that we're on is to build a substrate, a trust and connectivity fabric that can underlie and provide identity and security services for a wide range of platforms, software and hardware services, devices, spanning the entire HP product line, which is touches a lot of users, a lot of customers, a lot of product, cloud and on-prem deployments out there in the world. And so we are, had been engaging with Sunil and Emiliano and Andrew and Evan and the team at Sightail for, I think it was almost a year prior. And we believe that, just like you all do, I'm sure, that the role that SPIFFE, SVIDs and Spire will play in building trust fabrics like we want to build is I think self-evident, and we are committed to we have been a CNCF Gold sponsor, and we are committed to the community and continue the stewardship of these projects unabated, and accelerate that. And so really delighted to be here and be engaged, and look forward to the collaboration.
Great, thanks, Dave. Up next we have Doc.ai. Frederick, are you on? If you could unmute yourself.
Yeah, I am on. I'd like to share a screen, and I'm doing it in conjunction with Doc.ai and Anthem AI as well. I have Bobby Samuels on the line too.
Great, so I'll let you share your screen.
Thank you. Okay, so you should be able to see it, and go ahead and put it into presentation mode. It's hidden. Cool. Can you all see it still?
Yep, we can.
Great. So I'm Frederick. We also have Bobby on the line as well, and so we're going to go over zero trust healthcare in healthcare a little bit. And so if you would like a link to these slides, we've also provided a QR code. Thanks, Ed, for providing it. And so the way that we tend to build in most industries, not just healthcare, but the way we build it in our systems today tends to be in this pattern. We have a trusted network with a squishy inside with workloads that we run on that. If we need to connect multiple systems together, we may hook up a VPN. So we've hooked up two squishy networks together. And so what we're doing is we're defending our infrastructure with 11th century techniques. And so the question that I like to pose to people is, what happens if the attack starts here? And so the answer, and I apologize, I only have limited time on this, but the answer towards that we're pushing towards is to head towards zero trust environments. Where we have attested workloads, even if they are crossing network boundaries, we're still securing the connection from workload to workload. And so if an attacker appears within your untrusted network and they've managed to breach the outer perimeter of your network, they still have very limited to no access in order to cause damage. So how do we achieve this? We have to establish our trust domains. We have to attest our workloads. We have to establish policy on how they can communicate and establish trust between organizations. And so we establish a trust domain with a certificate authority, a CA. We attest using, we attest our workloads. And of course, there may be a chain of attestations here. At the very bottom, we want to attest our workloads. And then we want to create a policy. And this is an example of a policy that can be used to say these systems are allowed to communicate with each other. And once we have allowed that policy, if we want to cross between multiple organizations, then what we need to do is establish a trust between the two top-level organizations. And once that trust is established, we can then set the destination on each side to say, like, where's the destination going to, where's the source from? And then we now have our multi-organizational trust that has been established with policy allowing internal and external actors to go in. So this is a pattern that we are in the process of experimenting with. We're looking at we're building new solutions on top of this, and we're actively learning about how this can be used to effectively share information in the healthcare industry, where the healthcare industry has very strong requirements around maintaining the privacy of patient information and defending that patient information, while at the same time having the responsibility of ensuring that the information is used for improving the overall health of the population, such as COVID-19 strikes. How do we make sure that we can safely use information in order to save lives, while at the same time not infringing on your privacy? And so our call to action is to join the communities building these technologies. So of course we have SPIFFE Inspire and all the things that this great community is working on. It's great work going on in Open Policy Agent, Envoy, The example I showed was with a VPN earlier. That VPN is actually in our environments that we're building out, is actually established by Network Service Mesh. So we're actually driving that trust environment not only in the application layer, but into the infrastructure layers as well. So each infrastructure component you go through that is tied in through a Network Service Mesh has their own identities, and so you can assure the firewall you're going through is provided by who you think it is, the intrusion detection or so on, and that the policy is applied to make sure that you go through all of the elements that you want enforced by policy. And of course, Kubernetes and many other projects that are starting to incorporate these type of things. And of course, you can consider joining us as well. And I'll let Bobby give a few words as well.
So, hey everyone, thanks for allowing us space to come and chat and talk. This is super important to us at Anthem, and I know we're in the healthcare space, but we feel like there's significant opportunity in the healthcare space to collaborate and work. So we appreciate SciTail and the open source community here that's supporting us, and we're looking to collaborate. At the end of the day, we're looking to collaborate with people that are creative, that have ideas and that want to change healthcare. We fundamentally, so I'll just put the elephant on the table. Sometimes I feel like I work for the enemy. So I'm in the middle of it all. And I feel like we're in a place that we can change it. So to one of Frederick's slides earlier, if the attack starts in the middle, we're attacking it from the inside out. So we want to change the way healthcare works. And one of the ways to do that is to get the trust established out in the open source space, where it's not an entity that controls it, where it's actually open for the people and it's out there. So that's our goal and our hope, and we're looking forward, and we're hoping that many of you will collaborate with us, or many of your colleagues will collaborate and step up. So we'll take the initial steps, but we're looking forward to partnering with you. So thank you for making time for us today.
Great, thank you so much. It's great to look at new and upcoming companies, as well as traditional healthcare, financial services companies adopting SPIFFE and SPIRE as well. I'm going to share my screen again. Up next, I have Doran from IBM. Doran, I really hope I pronounced your name correct. Are you on?
Yes. Hi, can you hear me?
Yep, perfect. Go for it.
Okay, so my name is Doron Chen, and I work at the IBM Haifa Research Labs in Israel. I'm currently working on a research project called Data Mesh alongside a global team of researchers from Israel, India, Switzerland, and the US. So in a nutshell, the Data Mesh project automates the enforcement of data access policies in a service mesh such as Istio. So it enforces, for instance, what sensitive information can enter an application, and similarly, what sensitive information, if any, can leave the application. And our interest in SPIRE has to do, SPIFFE and SPIRE has to do with the identities. So we are trying to replace the Istio identity issuing mechanism with that of SPIRE. So currently Istio issues identities based on namespaces and service accounts, and we are interested in trying to achieve a more fine-grained workload identities. So that's it about the Data Mesh project in a nutshell. I would like to say that how much I enjoy working with the SPIRE community, who have been extremely supportive and responsive. So thank you very much.
Yeah, we love having you as well. Up next, we have Frontdoor. Domingo, are you on?
Yes.
Perfect. Hey.
Hey, everybody. Domingo Kaiser, security engineer at Frontdoor. We kind of have basically kind of 2 million customers, 45 years of history in the home service plan industry. So, our lot in life is trying to make home ownership simpler. One of the things that we've been doing in the last couple of years is, revitalizing our internal platforms. A lot of it is built on, open source components. We do look at Istio and use Istio for our service mesh deployment. Similar to what Doran was previously mentioned, is our interest in Inspire is to do a very similar, solve a very similar problem, have some more fine-grained workload identities in Istio. But right now we're relying on Istio Citadel implementation for the short term. SPIFFE Inspire is really some of the core components we're looking at and building our internal service mesh and exposing that as a platform as a service to our developers. Other components we're looking at and using today in production include Open Up Policy Agent, for example, and the intersection for us is really using those SPIFFE identities to index into our authorization policy, and then building user-friendly interfaces and DSLs on top of that. We're kind of new kids on the block right now in the open source community, so we definitely want to kind of chip in and join where we can, particularly in the areas of SRE and IAM. I've kind of been working on both sides of the fence for a little while, and on the security side, we're looking at creating a DSL for authorization policies based on the SPIFFE identities, making that easier for our users internally. So that's some tooling that we've started kind of working on internally and hope to maybe bring that to the community at some point in the future. SRE as well, we've taken the approach where we're trying to solve federation of SPIFFE identities across many instances of Istio clusters. And that's one of the key areas I think that we're going to be looking for working with SPIRE and looking how we're going to set up that federation API for different Istio service mesh deployments, as well as interoperability with legacy environments. We'd like to be able to use the same identity format and the same authorization components across some legacy workloads that may not be in a container service mesh, for example. So we're excited to be here and hopefully to contribute more and talk to you guys on Slack. And we're very in our early days of building our paths. We do have about 6 months of running some production workloads with Istio and SPIFFE and OPA. So we're still kind of very early on that journey, but excited to be here.
Great,
Thanks.
thank you. Up next, we have Ed. Are you on?
I am indeed here.
Perfect, awesome, go for it.
So we're a little bit different. So Network Service Mesh is an open source project. We're a CNCF project, and we're focused on delivering sort of hybrid multi-cloud, what we sort of been calling IP service mesh. Let me sort of distinguish this a little bit from what you normally think of in service mesh. Normally things in service mesh are dealing with layers 4 through 7. I have HTTP messages and I need to get them somewhere. Network service mesh is dealing with things that actually live below that. And essentially we're providing the ability to have this as something that spans from multiple runtime domains, multiple clouds, et cetera. And it's set up to allow individual workloads to connect to network services requested by that workload, where we define a network service as something that provides the IP connectivity, security, and observability that was asked for by the workload. And we just got the simple example of you just asked for it by name here. So if you're a payroll app and you want to connect to the payroll database replication network service, you do, and then whatever funky IP-only replication protocol you're using just works. Now, this gets to our interest in SPIFFE, because we actually have fairly ambitious needs around SPIFFE. Unlike a lot of folks who are simply saying, I want to deploy this in my enterprise, where you probably have a single trust domain. Network service mesh is actually looking very broadly in a global sense, right? So our basic interests start with, if you're something that is an endpoint that's providing a network service, you need to be able to decide whether the network service, the request to connect a workload to you is valid and you wish to admit it. So you need to be able to make that decision. Workloads need to be able to decide whether to accept a network service from a particular endpoint who's offering it to them, right? If I'm trying to connect to my VPN and there's somebody who's a man in the middle, I don't want to take that VPN service from it. And both of those policy decisions require an identity that is cryptographically authenticatable across a widely distributed trust domain, because you may be smearing the trust domain as a single organization across many Kubernetes instances, VMs, and other places. And also across many trust domains, because you could imagine partners, partner networks are a very normal thing, the whole extranet concept. I'm a major manufacturer and I have 3,000 suppliers, all of whom I want to be able to connect to things that I'm providing. I need to be able to federate my trust domains with them so I can trust their identities and they can trust mine. Now I can make policy decisions beyond that, but I've got to be able to trust the identities. And then the other reason that we're super interested in the SPIRE side, so that's all a good argument for SPIFFE, right? Common cryptographically authenticatable identities that can be federated. But then you come around to sort of why SPIRE is super important to us. And that is that typically we've got customers who want to be able to use a common identity issued by a common identity management system like SPIRE from L3 all the way through L7, right? So not just to say that you're allowed to connect to the corporate VPN, but I can literally trace the identity all the way from the connect to the corporate VPN, all the way through the request that it makes to various microservices, et cetera. And then also we have customers who want to be able to do this across multiple heterogeneous applications, right? So I may have different service meshes that I don't want every service mesh to have its own notion of identity, because then I can't interoperate between those in network service mesh and in each other properly. And that's why SPIRE is super important to us.
Great, thank you so much, Ed.
Thank you.
Thank you everyone for jumping in and talking about your interest in SPIFFE